Hey, everybody, welcome. We're live tonight, 7 p.m. I'm 2 minutes late, 7:02. It's okay. I hope you're still there. It looks like we're having trouble with LinkedIn tonight. Whatever. No one, does anyone even listen to us on LinkedIn? Should I even edit it? No, I'm just going to let it go. You know what? LinkedIn's not working tonight. It's okay. We're everywhere else. We're live on YouTube. Everyone can hear me. Sounds good, right? I know Sean McDonough's live right now. He's got a lot of people listening. I'm a little worried that not enough people can be listening to us tonight because we got a great show. We got a great guest. This is we've been starting to cover this the police reform with the post commission. We've been watching these and streaming these post commission hearings. This is a new state bureaucracy, which is I'm happy about the post commission, but obviously there's already some issues with it, and it's not strong enough. The post commission, for people that don't know, it's police oversight, standards and testing. They certify police officers, they investigate them, they determine if they should be licensed and certified for duty, and they do some reporting. And it is a new commission that the state of Massachusetts set up. Other states also apparently have post commissions as well. So this is a new thing for us. I have a great guest tonight. I'm wicked excited to have him on the show, back on the show. For people who aren't familiar, he's a journalist for many years. He was my editor for a number of years at Dig Boston. He was an editor and publisher of Dig Boston, which is the weekly print publication that was on the streets of Boston for decades. He ended up taking it over for its last hurrah, which I thought it was its like best reporting, best journalism of Dig Boston. Dig Boston's been around a long time. Fortunately, I don't believe they're anymore due to the COVID, but he's continued on. He funded a lot of my journalism in the past. He was my editor. Every week he would make my material look good for print publication and online with Dig Boston. He also has funded a ton of journalism. He funds a lot of other journalists out there, and that's why I really love him. He always made sure we got paid. He would tell you what you were getting paid. You would get paid when you said you were getting paid. Most other media outlets were never like that. You had to chase down the money if you ever got paid. Boston Institute of Nonprofit Journalism is his nonprofit that he funds journalism and investigations. And he's been looking into the Boston Institute with the Boston Institute of Nonprofit Journalism. We'll call it BINJ. He's been looking into the Post Commission. He just published a story, half the story. Came out September 18th. It's Chris Ferrone, who was my guest, with Sam Stecklow. He co-wrote this one. And you could basically see half the story here. Massachusetts passed historic police certification reform, but even with the post commission, the public can't see which cops have been part of the officer shuffle. Welcome back to the show. My great honor, Chris Ferrone, journalist. How you doing, Chris?
I'm great, man. It's great to be here, and congratulations on really blowing up, man. Doing your thing and sticking to it. But I've been following along, so I appreciate the intro. But it's been great to watch you do your thing.
Thank you for being like a mentor to me in a lot of respects over the years. Just you are always there for me. To listen to a lot of my, like when I was losing my shit too with the cannabis stuff at the end. I just really thank you, and you continued on. You continue to cover that too, which I'm
No,
very
and
thankful of.
I hate to just pander right back, but the truth is, man, you dragged me to do some of those hard stories. I was doing a lot of the police stuff and a lot of this stuff, and that was important. That's important too. And you kept, I don't know, your sources are drawn to you way more than they are to me. And you were getting a lot of good people, and just the mold was real. We were smoking way worse weed at the beginning of medical and everything than we had been in the so-called black market or illicit market. So. But yeah, I mean, those scoops are real. And of course, you broke the big one just, last year, Lorna McMurray's passing, death. But yeah, it's been a long time, man. But I'm glad to see you're still doing the work, and we're still on the grind too.
We are, and I'm glad to see you're still doing it too with Boston Institute nonprofit journalism. And you have this website. It's horizonmass.news that we're going to put some stories up from. Tell us about BINJ for people that don't
Cool.
know and how they can support journalism
Thanks. So,
locally.
BINJ stands for the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. We're actually going to our 10th year, which is totally insane. And, so the idea was that, when I took over the Dig, which did make it 25 years until we put it out of business last year, even when the Dig was doing okay, there was never the really funding for the kind of reporting that I wanted to do. I used to work at the Boston Phoenix. I was a staff writer there. And I was really fortunate. I'd be able to spend a month, 2 months on a story, and we did big things. We got the commissioner of the Department of Correction to resign at one point. Big stories like that. The Joe Donovan case. He was doing a life sentence without parole. He ended up getting out in part due to our reporting. So that's the kind of stuff that we were able to do over the years. And when the Phoenix went under, those resources just weren't there. And even with the Dig, if I needed to pay someone even $500 for a big story or a couple $100 or an ongoing thing like you were doing, columns, that funding wasn't there. And long story short, in Boston at the time, if you brought up the term nonprofit journalism, everyone just thought BUR, GBH, NPR, right? And whatever. I have my issues with all those places from time to time, but really, my beef was that, frankly, they weren't working with outside reporters. You certainly weren't going to walk in and work with somebody at one of those newsrooms. And
They would work with me.
no, they were
That's
raising
the
all this
truth.
money.
Yeah.
They were raising millions of dollars. And then what
Yeah.
they're doing, giving their reporting to places like the Boston Globe that could afford to do their own reporting. So our model was the opposite. It's a freelance shop. Whatever we raise, we're very transparent about it. We take part-time salaries, and then the rest of the money goes out to freelancers. There's very little burn. Even when we have offices, they're usually donated. But we're really a free-floating incubator. So yes, we have horizonmass.news right now. That's an outlet that a lot of our interns write for. We publish all our professional stuff there. It's solid. Traffic's only going up and up. But the most important thing about BINJ is that we distribute all over the place. I would even consider doing this show a part of our distribution. The story that we're talking about right now, I'm happy to say, ran in more than a dozen places, from weeklies, small weeklies like Sudbury, for example, to Luke O'Neill's newsletter, Welcome to Hell World, ran it, to Andrew Quamir's site, the Mass Dump and Mass Transparency. So we really got it in where we could get it in. And of course, I got to shout out Invisible Institute. And that'll get us into this because, Invisible Institute is, like a BINJ, but better and stronger. And they're based out of Chicago. They're actually, even for a small shop, they've won Pulitzers. And not bullshit for like the way the Times just automatically wins them. Like, they earned it, man. Anybody who's ever heard of the Laquan McDonald case, which is a young man who was tragically shot and killed in Chicago several years ago. And the cops just straight up lied about it. And Invisible Institute got the video. There's actually a documentary about that. So they hit hard. And so I actually saw Sam and Jamie from Invisible Institute at a conference earlier this year. And they said, listen, we're putting together we're doing this huge national project that is going to take a lot of data that's available, but also help people track where cops have been. And they didn't want to work with BINJ because we could contribute to that. They wanted to work with BINJ to do a story about how Massachusetts was not going to be one of the states featured in that database. Now, that database will ultimately, I think, have 27 states. Right now, I think there are 17, but it's not going to have Massachusetts. So what we did was look, even with this new apparatus, the Post Commission, why is that the case? Why is Massachusetts, the bastion of progressive values and such, and let me say one more thing. I don't know how much history we're going to get into, but, Post Commission was a long time coming. I mean, Massachusetts has a history of police corruption, and they never wanted to do it. It's simple oversight. It's listen, everything's a push and pull. So obviously a lot of advocates, activists wanted more civilians on the Post Commission and less police presence. And we'll get to who is making these decisions. But honestly, I mean, this was forever. Now there's only 2 states in the country that don't have police certification. I think that's Hawaii and our neighboring Rhode Island. But Massachusetts was one of the last. So,
Wow.
Mike, I saw you on social media. What were you talking about? What do you have to get a license for?
Financial advisor. Like I had to get 4 licenses to do what I did back in the day, state and federal. Like
And easily
life,
taken away,
accident,
right?
health, Series 7, IAR, which is another one. Like I just said those 3 licenses. With those 3 licenses, I couldn't even give advice really on stocks. The only way I could give advice was the investment advisor. So there was like different levels. Yeah, you had to have 4, and it was every single job you ever worked in your whole life. You had to basically go back like 20 years or some shit. Yeah,
It's crazy. So up until a couple of years ago, basically there was no certification for police in Massachusetts. Barbers, everybody else had it's like 150 professions that have to have licensing. Cops were able to actually dodge that for decades, and finally, it took, of course, the tragic murder of George Floyd more than halfway across the country to spur politicians into action. But listen, that's the Boston way. That's the Massachusetts way. Even when that was all going on, the Boston Globe would actually be writing articles about police brutality in other places without recognizing unbelievable events that have unfolded in greater Boston. And I can go on and on about those, but certainly we have lots of current, contemporary cases to discuss.
and I just want to let everyone know I pinned in the YouTube chat the Horizon Mass.news story that we're going to be covering tonight. So if people want to read along, I'm going to have it on the screen, but you can also, click the link and definitely check it out. And follow Chris too. You're on Twitter. It's
Yeah,
Farah1, the
that's
number 1
Farah1. I
FA.
think I see my
Yeah.
tattoo artist on there. Props. It's my third party. We don't vote for the Dems or the Republicans. That's the last one.
Yeah, you're third party still. You're not.
Yeah, I usually vote for Vermin Supreme in national elections. I only said that because I just saw my tattoo artist on there, so I want to shout out.
There
So
we go.
that's my third party tattoo up there, upside down.
You're still going for Vermin. That's so funny.
How could you not?
I like Vermin, but I'm not voting for him. And I used to vote third party every year, but it's funny. I've both voted Green and Libertarian in the past for
Hey,
president.
I went dancing with Jill Stein one time when she was running.
Yeah, see, I used to hang out with her, and then last time I saw her, she ran away from me because I was asking her about her meeting with Putin.
Oh yeah, that was so strange.
She didn't want to talk. She ran away. So let's get off the politics and get back to the story tonight. So this post commission, actually, I when you just went through the history of even Dick Boston, I brought up memories of how I was probably writing for Dick Boston a couple years before you came, and then when you took, or maybe a year, something like that, and then you took over as the editor, and I wrote for you for a number of years, but you weren't in charge. Somebody else was, and
Dan
there was no
McCarthy.
money
Dan
there.
McCarthy was the head
Yeah.
editor. Props to Dan
Yeah.
McCarthy.
And Jeff was the publisher, and there
Yep.
was no money there at all. Like I remember writing every single week, like for I don't know, like probably 5 years, and people were shocked when they found out that I had never been paid before. Like I never got paid until you basically created BINJ and said, "Mike, we're paying you. I don't
Thanks,
care if
and
it's
that's why we did it,
$100."
man. It gets to the point where, and it's you're driven. You're one of the people who are doing it anyway. But listen, most of the people who work with us, and I think one of the reasons our reporting is so good in a lot of respects is that people are working real jobs. They know the real world. They're not just stuck in the reporter's bubble. They don't go to the cool reporter parties. Look at like Nate Homan, for example, who does great stuff for us. He's literally in punk rock band and works as a locksmith. Real people here. Nothing against professional reporters. I'm kind of one of them myself, but it gets to the point where it's just so silly. They really they're just smelling their own farts all day.
And Nate Holman, he likes to box too. I like to
Yeah,
see
he's a
his little
boxer. Yeah,
boxer.
you got to have at least one boxer on the
I
roster.
love it. Yeah. I'm all about that sports, like not watching, doing. But
Yeah, me too.
and I was a wrestler, but I'm afraid of boxing now. I'm like, I don't know how old he is, but the fact that he still puts on the gloves, major props to him. because I don't do that stuff anymore. I'm afraid I'll hurt myself. I don't know. For me, the problem with that stuff is I never could do it half-ass. Like
Yeah.
I'll always get hurt because I'm going all out. Like there'll be like tag football game or something. I'll end up blowing up a knee.
I was just on the pickleball court right before this, man.
So you can
Yep.
go hardcore, and people
I do.
definitely
I
get hurt
do.
doing that pickleball. So I'm gonna put the story back up here. Get this back up. See if I could read it with my eyes too. I'm gonna enlarge the screen. All right. So this police certification, the post commission.
Yeah.
Why can't we see the officer shuffle? What's this officer shuffle that you're talking about in the
All right.
story? Tell us about this story.
Cool. And BUR is one of the first people to kind of look at it through the eyes of through one officer. But basically, generally speaking, and I'll get to that, when they established the post commission by legislative statute, they were specifically supposed to include the full employment history. It's basically, it is laid out in there. I actually have the word right here. Focused on disciplinary, so including police misconduct complaints which are not sustained by the agencies. Okay, so basically, the idea was to get everything that is on a police officer's record. Now, not just their current place of employment, not just their last one, but also unsustained complaints. And we can get to why this is important. Listen, people know I cover the police. Not a huge fan of police unless they're my sources. But I will say I understand why they don't want their full employment history. But we could talk about that. Fact is, the statute stated that it was supposed to be there. Now, one of the first obvious problems with the post commission is that the only thing that we can see are the complaints that actually went through, what people actually got in trouble for. Now, anyone who's been watching your show, watching the Karen Reed case, anything surrounding it knows, we just saw it this week, right? With the investigation in Canton. Who is the person disciplining these people? It's their friends, it's their homie, it's the person they drunk drive with. So, I don't have to say much more to communicate that, what the things that are on the record that are actually sustained allegations there's way more than that. Not everything comes to the point where there is discipline. Now, the post commission was actually collecting that information, and to a point still is collecting that information. Now, that information, of course, is very important for a number of reasons, because sure, it's what's there in what we're seeing in the post commission, the really bad stuff that police, even departments, had to get people in trouble for, sanction officers for, fire officers for, suspend officers for. There's a lot of bad stuff in there. And like you said before, post commission, good thing, right? We're better off with it than without. But it was so at the beginning when this first happened, we started to see, and listen, there are cases where we know what happened. We've been covering cops in different municipalities, state police for years. Where's this that we knew happened? But it wasn't sustained. So suddenly things weren't showing up. And I want to give a shout out to Dan Atkinson, who's done a lot of great work for BINJ. And he kind of figured one back door last year into police records was the Civil Service Commission. So any of you sleuths out there who want to dig up stuff on cops that is not showing up in the post commission because these allegations didn't make it all the way to a disciplinary action, there are other ways to find it. The point here is that it's not all being gathered and put in this database, which the whole point, spirit of this database, of the post commission resource, is to be able to see really who are the problematic officers. Now, I understand why the argument. By the way, the person on the post commission who's chiefly arguing against unsustained allegations and complaints being included is, of course, the head of the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association. Now, I shouldn't have. Anybody who's familiar with the BPPA knows, we could talk about their unbelievably bigoted history. They literally had a newsletter so racist that they painted Barack Obama as a monkey, whether you like the guy or not, just completely out of line. And that's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, absolute
They had a
brutal.
guy. It was led by a guy who was a child molester for
I mean,
decades,
so
right?
yeah, I mean, they basically knew. I mean, listen, this is Boston police. The BPPA defend anything, anybody, including yes. I mean, I don't want to. We could talk about Patrick Rose. I'm sure you've done. You've
People
spoken
could
about
just
him quite.
Google him if you want
Yeah,
to. Go down a rabbit hole. You could just do Patrick Rose. Google him.
and why don't you go look at how many times he ever got in trouble? Probably none. I mean, this is kind of it's actually probably a decent example. But basically, so they got their way, and I have it right here. So the exemption, and by the way, I know I'm going fast, so just feel free to back me up. But the exemption is this: the proposed, this is how when an allegation of police misconduct is not sustained by the relevant department, it does not follow that the allegation was necessarily false. This is what advocates are arguing, right? The police are arguing that there is an exemption, and that is that the exemption to information being included about an officer is if it could potentially impact the officer's health or safety. Okay, so here's the information concerning any complaint or disciplinary matter that has not been resolved adversely to the officer, unless the matter was resolved in a manner that the commission determines to have been unwarranted. So basically, this is them saying, yeah, we're collecting it. We know what happened that didn't make it all the way, but we're not including that because they're arguing that if they include that information about officers, that their health and safety would be jeopardized. And right now they're getting away with it. So unlike, by the way, 27 other states where this information is trackable. So, by the way, those of us like me, the East Coast snobs who diss red states all the time, even a hellhole like Florida, people should know they're very transparent. For some odd reason, I don't get it because a lot of these,
Yeah, it's so funny. Same thing with we were looking at the medical cannabis testing.
Yeah,
With I think you featured him. Forget the
yeah, with
doctor.
Yasha.
There. Yeah, and Florida has better transparency on it for the consumer than Massachusetts does. They
Mass
put
fought
everything
like
out.
hell. Mass fought like hell to not give that data to MCR Labs. Absolutely. And we deal with this. And by the way, in this
Same
story, it's a big one. Too long, don't read, as some say, but you should read it. And I know you did, but like basically, we get to that. We get to deal. This is classic Massachusetts lack of transparency. And a big point here that I want to make is that they actually proactively in 2023 sent an email out saying that you don't have to provide this information. They basically hobbled their own system. They could have had it. It was coming in. And they did it to themselves. So this is actually deliberate. Of course, a decision made by, the post commission. But yeah, it was there really like this close. And I got to say one thing that, I don't just say this lightly. I say it because it's real. Massachusetts, of course, is known for, pedophile priests being moved around, not like, that's obviously, private, and we're talking about public, and these are different issues. But I think it's just ironic that, in part thanks to this reporting and just, comparisons for, those who are watchdogs and looking at, police oversight across the country. Here's Massachusetts again, the joke of it all. And this may seem like pandering what I'm about to say, but this is for the cops too. In fact, we've spoken, officers don't, hiring officers don't want to go on record. HR departments in big in municipalities, they don't like this. I mean, they are not always loyal to each other from department to department. You get departments that get these guys stuck on them who, are just unbelievable, assaulting women in the back of vehicles and so forth. So that's why it's the officer shuffle, just like it was the pre-shuffle. They go from place to place to place. And the system that is in place now is not really, it's not effective. It's not effective to the point where it's going to prevent that. The departments are still on their own to do these, they're going to do background checks obviously anyway, but this could have been an added tool. Now it's okay, but it's not what it could have been.
It's interesting you brought up that it would benefit the police, because that's what I was thinking of. Well, when you brought it to me as a financial advisor, I've seen people get kicked out of the building because of licensing. Lying, just getting caught. Like, someone made up a fake business card and said they went to Harvard. They didn't. You know what I mean? Like, just crazy shit like that. And it's like, when you're legit and you're in that industry and it's all about trust, which policing is as well. It's you need to people need to trust you. You talked about journalism sources. That's what it's about. Trust. Do they trust you? Do they feel like they can relate to you? That's the same with journalism. That's the same with being a financial advisor. Same with being a law enforcement. People have to trust you. And so licensing, I think, helps increase the value of your work, number one. So, like, dollars, you're going to get paid more. And it keeps the riffraff out. It keeps the embarrassments out. It keeps the scandals out. I don't know why they're like, it seems like they're against their own interests, because they're the biggest lobby, I think, against this type of transparency. Why are they doing that? Why don't they have a clue that this would actually help law enforcement?
I mean, look at what they get away with, man. I mean, I obviously a lot of your viewers are following the Karen Read trial, all of them, and I can't stress enough, man, that look, this is the most publicized case I have ever seen, and not only do they not give a shit, they are throwing it in everyone's face, hiring a mob lawyer, retrying. I mean, this is even worse than classic Massachusetts. So you can imagine, I mean, they fight everything. As for, listen, I'm not going to sit here and all cops are bastards or there are some good cops. That's all corny. We deal with this case by case, right? And department by department. And yeah, some departments have more integrity, but what we're seeing are sometimes these are there are voices that come up that speak for the police as if they're speaking for them as a group, but they are not. They are speaking for them all as individuals, protecting their individual rights, okay, and not looking out for the department, but more importantly, not looking. And what does that mean? They're not looking out for who the department's supposed to look out for, the public, and that's kind of the joke here, right? So, and also the other thing about the fact that these unsustained allegations are not going in the database. Now think about that from the perspective of, let's say you and I we working together and I'm your manager and you fuck up and you deserve to get in trouble. And maybe a couple of years ago, I would have suspended you for a week, right? But now I know that if I do that, it's going to end up in the post database and your career is shot and all this nonsense and all of these concerns and considerations that have nothing to do with the public that is supposed to be served, right? That's now not going to go in the database. So maybe you would have caught this discipline, but now I'm going to keep it out. And now that does two things. One, you don't get in trouble. Two, it's not even traceable. So, this is all bad already because we already have forgotten about the stuff that no one's ever going to know about. Right, the stuff where the sergeant caught the foot soldier stealing the car or assaulting someone in the back of it, and hey buddy, I'm going to take you out for a beer, and nobody's ever going to find out about this. Nothing's ever. We're never going to know about that stuff. We're never going to know about that stuff. Okay, and then on the other hand, there's the stuff we are learning about, the sustained allegations, but there is this chasm in the middle, and that's what our story is really about.
How do we change that? How does that? How do we fix this?
I mean, I think pressure on the listen, man. You go to the wall. I mean, the fact that you're showing those post-commission meetings. I mean, I could go on and on about. We both covered the Cannabis Control Commission, and that gets more attention than any other, agency in the history of Massachusetts. Meanwhile, we have things like the Post Commission, where exactly, there's no accountability, as one of your viewers just said. So I think that. Yes, I don't mean to be a total pessimist when I say that there's all this energy behind the Karen Read and they're just digging the case and they're just digging their heels in more. That's fine. That's the game, right? It's a push and pull. But you just got to keep pushing. As for this part, I think that I'm going to give a huge shout out here to Jeff Raymond. Jeff Raymond is a blogger. He writes a blog called Mass Transparency. I suggest everybody subscribe to that. And also Andrew Quamir, the mass dump. Mass transparency. Jeff actually went to the Post Commission and said, we want all the data you collected. Forget about the stuff that you're putting in your database. We want to see all the stuff you actually got. And this is the reason that Sam from Invisible Institute was able to really see right away before they even contacted BINJ that there is, again, a huge gap. There's we know that they were getting stuff, not putting it in there. So, I think that it's not something an individual can do, but even the projects like what Invisible Institute is doing. I mean, anybody who's out there who's been looking into the Karen Reed case, I'm sure has come across woke windows. These data projects, they don't happen overnight. They don't happen for free, although there's a lot of volunteer hours. Support stuff like that. If you're not a coder, support the ones who are, do what you can do. But a lot of these data projects are important, and they're slow burns. It's not like there's going to be a million people using that information right away. But much like a lot of the work that the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism does, this is stuff that hopefully months, even years later, people still come back and find this reporting we did, because it may not be critical. Well, we think it's critical at the moment, but it has a long tail. It's always there. Right now, with all the state police unrest, you have no idea how many people I speak with on a regular basis. We love it. I'm just going to say it. We love it that people finally are seeing this outside. And God, I don't know if you want to talk about that problematic new Braintree training facility. These are the things, folks. This has been going on forever. Yeah, woke windows no longer updated. Great point. Yeah. So by the way, Post Commission will have a lot of that stuff. But yeah, woke windows. I don't know. I don't remember who was doing the project, but this is the thing. I'm definitely guilty of taking them for granted. But yeah, all of that kind of stuff. And by the way, those who are sleuths, I said this before, but maybe people are just tuning in now. There are other places with police records, personnel records. The Civil Service Commission, Massachusetts Civil Service Commission, is one of them. Because let me tell you, as much as we see the blue line, right? We see cops arm in arm. Those of us who are in the trenches and even who are just watching these trials, we know that's not really the case. We know that it's a lot of cops hate each other. They snitch on each other. There's no love among a lot of these guys, and especially women who have been treated the way they have in the municipal departments and the state police. Like, you want to hear about hazing at the new Braintree facility? Talk to any woman I know too who have been sources who dropped out of the academy. And
what kind of stuff did they see there?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll tell you that in a second, but I'll tell some of this is the stuff that we all know. I mean, they made a guy eat shitty underwear a couple of years ago. I mean, they've been in trouble before. This is not the first time. And the article I shared on your Twitter feed before is called Real Troopers and Beeper Days. I can't stress enough that while we're all sitting here maybe laughing, but really analyzing, impugning the Massachusetts State Police, they're sitting there with their fancy boots, taxpayer-funded boots and hats, and they think they're serious. They are a very serious operation as far as they are concerned. Never mind the unbelievable, infractions, the breaking of public trust over generations. They don't care. They completely miss it, and they treat each other like dog shit. Also, and I think a lot of that's coming out now. But they're a pretty tight-lipped bunch too. So they're pretty tough to report on. But I just want to get back to what people can do. I think people are doing it. I think it's pressure. I think people should be very careful. A lot of these people are dangerous. They're on their back legs right now. They're armed. We get some crazy calls, and the other thing I think that's really important is, yeah, somebody said it's scary. You become the story. We really try to avoid it. I'm not always in there for the sexy headline. Sometimes we'll do it. We do those stories, but really I'm looking at more institutional issues, because I feel that's the kind of work that a lot of sleuths, a lot of bloggers, people with podcasts can go back to and reference, and it's not just we do, that's police. We do other things. We cover the governor's council, for example. I'll just real quick. We just analyzed every single vote for judges in this state under Charlie Baker. So every vote, I think it was like 400 votes, to see that it's a given. There's 3 or 4 governors, counselors who just vote for every judge. It's all freaking fixed. They're all basically, donors and of that class and friends of politicians. But those are your judges. So, again, how that extends to this, it's like, I guess I'm a conspiracy guy, but really not. I mean, this is just all so easy, but and I don't blame people for not knowing a lot of this stuff. That information, and I'll get off the governor's council for a second, but that judge information, let's say you want the information on a judge who's involved in the Karen Reed case, that's not online and it's nowhere near accessible. You have to actually get into the governor's council office and basically make an appointment and then go into this back room where they have paper files. Imagine that. Think something as important as a judge who holds people's entire lives in their hands all day long. Their information, the way they got in that judgeship, their initial submission questionnaire, the way that governor's counselors voted on them, all the related materials, literally in a paper folder in a back room at the State House. That's
Wow.
so back to mass transparency, right?
That maybe, I hope people heard that. Maybe someone will go look up Judge Cannoni's file.
Yeah, I meant to pull her file when I was in there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if somebody already did, but it would still be there. You're not allowed to leave with it. You just take your camera, take the
Take
pictures.
some notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Good. We're getting so much good info here. People are enjoying this. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight, Chris. Tell us more about this half the story before we move to some of the other ones that you wrote.
Yeah.
Because there is more to this.
So, I think a lot of this is, so what we also looked at, like other places, like where could this information exist? And, one is the State Municipal Police Training Commission. That's the MPTC. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. And so we figured, okay, that's where all the police have to get trained. Clearly, they would know the former work histories of cops. The idea being they must have a thing, so we could just cross-reference that database, the post commission, and all will be, at the very least, maybe the unsustained allegations are not in there, but we'll at least know if a cop worked at 4 different departments. Again, not just for not just for sleuths, not just for journalists, not just for the public, but for other departments. There's some departments, maybe, I guess, that are so depraved that might want somebody who's done something horrible. But even a skeptic like me doesn't really think that's the case. There are problem cops. And so I got to say, so basically, so people went to that. The ACLU's been involved with this, by the way. This isn't, we did, and I want to give big shout out. Invisible Institute did a lot of the legwork here. We came in with our, institutional knowledge, a lot of the things I'm talking about here to kind of help put this puzzle together. But the ACLU has been, people, watchdogs of these issues have been saying, you are going to make this post commission toothless, or at least make it only half the story. So the MPTC, do they have it? Of course not. It's Massachusetts. They only sometimes record the agencies of officers who, they don't even have the information ready for this one necessarily, of the cops who go to. So if you're a cop from whatever, Walpole, and you go to the agency, they might not even have a record that you were a Walpole cop. Wow. That's how the kind of records they're keeping over there. So that information is often secondhand and inaccurate, to quote one of our sources. So it's all about the quality of the transparency. We don't have the full employment history. And so it's like, it's kind of, it's a shame. They're halfway there. It's not a total lost cause. The information that's there is not compromised. That's good stuff. And these hearings are very important. So this is not like an all or nothing thing. This is really pointing out a giant gap. And I just want to stress enough that it could have been better. It was better. The Post Commission deliberately hobbled their own collection efforts last year, amidst criticism from the ACLU and others. They and actually have the line right here. I'll just read it. That same month, so that is February 2023, a letter from the head of the Post Commission went out instructing departments to start over and provide far less information. Here's the quote. Please note that we are only requesting that you submit sustained disciplinary records as part of this resubmission, he wrote. Post will only publish sustained records, and those are the ones that need to be validated at this point. So no hyperbole here. They had it, and they went back halfway. So that's what we're dealing with.
Point, though, might indicate that they may once they can, get their hands around what's already there for sustained, maybe they will add them.
Yeah, I mean, and they have them. I think, and don't forget, there are lawmakers, obviously the more progressive ones, Jamie Eldridge, who have, pointed this out. I don't know if this is something that would come by legislation or just influence. But yeah, I mean, at this point, they've kind of decided this is the position they're going to take. And I just want to I want to warn anybody out there, by the way, if you are digging around for unsustained allegations, they are unsustained allegations. You can be, sued for, maybe not, asking for comments, stuff like this. I'm not saying don't go there, but just be careful.
Be careful.
Be careful. They're high stakes. But just one big one here is so it's in 2022. BUR, and Mike, I think you've seen, we've reported on this stuff also over the years. All of these district attorneys around the state have gray lists, right? They have lists of cops who can't testify, who shouldn't testify. All right. And you have me on here, and I hope I'm not so fired up. I obviously am. But if you have defense attorneys in Massachusetts talk about this, they who have dealt with the police, they will tell you that this stuff doesn't just show up. Okay. This information about what may have happened in a cop's past. All right. It always has to be dug around for. And that's what it is. They're just, still keeping it in the shadows. And, that's where. So and by the way, the term for the cops who have, moved between departments are wanderers. And there are some seriously solid examples of officers who have really just had an unbelievable amount of unsustained allegations. There, citizen complaints. And anybody who's covered BPD knows they were just some of the worst for this. We would find guys who have one guy making $290,000 a year with 30 plus unsustained allegations against them. One of which was, and now things are different now, right? Some of these unsustained allegations were something that was caught on video. What do you mean? What do you mean he didn't get in trouble? He pushed the kid's face into a fucking, frying, whatever it is. It just, so there's reality. And I'm someone who really kind of, as a reporter, I really like the stuff that's on paper. I don't love dealing with the unsustained stuff, but it's still important to know.
Yeah, especially if there's 30 of them. And what are they? Is there a pattern?
Yeah.
Is there over and over again being violent to people? You know what I mean? Or racial profiling, or whatever it is, sexual assault of women. Like if it's 30 of them, you got to think this needs to be known. It needs to be known.
Yeah. And I guess, I think a lot of it, and I'm guilty of this as a local and state reporter, I'm guilty of forgetting that there are 49 other states, right? We tend to operate as if whatever, bad cop leaves Massachusetts, so what? Not so what? He could end up killing somebody. He could end up sexually assaulting somebody, whatever it is. And so we're also letting down other states that are actually now tracking this stuff. So, of course, there are still, more than a dozen states that have nothing. And I'm sure the officer shuffle among them is just absolutely heinous and will continue. And I would, if I was moving, if you're moving, you should really look at that, because we're going to end up with basically 10 states with the most horrid police departments in the country. Massachusetts will maybe not be one of them, but hey, you never know with the traditions we have around here.
There's a lot to look at there. It's funny too, you mentioned Boston, because I've seen some of that reporting in the past. They'd have a lot of problem police in Boston.
Unbelievable. And talk about unsustained allegations. I mean, the gang unit alone, what they rack up, I don't know if they're still being investigated by the state attorney general. We broke that story last year. So, there's, and again, that's the other thing, investigations by, other agencies, by the feds, stuff like that. I mean, think about how much more work they have to do when it's like, I'm sure looking at a department like Canton, I don't think they're going to say, oh, okay, what are these sustained allegations? No, they gonna really gonna dig deep. So again, we're not I'm not talking about all the stuff that's been actually buried and covered up over the years. We're not prophets, we're not soothsayers, we're not going to find any of that stuff, but there is a lot of stuff that is there. And back to what can people do? Listen, I think this stuff in your own local municipality, you can find things like this. There are other data sets that can be cross-referenced. To do it at a statewide level, 350 municipalities, damn near impossible. But I think every little bit helps.
But you can, especially journalists too. I think they could focus on obviously the problem departments, Boston,
yeah, absolutely.
Canton, Braintree. I mean, Chicopee, Springfield. You know where they are. I mean, we hear about them.
And I'm really interested in, and it will help with this because even what we have in the post, again, I don't want to totally slander the thing. Even what we have in the post commission now is there's substantial stuff. So let's say there's a lot of cases going to be open. This person who died, that person who died, what's her name? Gail Mile. What was it? I think she's the Watertown police officer woman who was beaten to death in her apartment in Roxbury. There's a case like nobody ever gave a shit about except for a reporter at BUR, Bruce Gellerman, a couple of years. I think that's the only place you'll ever read about that. She was bringing up complaints against her department, stuff like that. Not to get, to go on, but basically, if you're looking into that, who are the other officers working there? You look at Watertown, for example. Look right in that database. You're going to find a bunch of cops who were around that situation who have problems.
Watertown's another town that's had
oh god,
a lot of
the Watertown police are one of the most terrifying disasters in the state. I mean, I think Methuen may have them give them a run for their money. There are a couple legendary departments out there, but but we see crazy things all over the place. I was thinking about today, Mike, is the Shimmy story, which I think you put us onto years ago in Swampscott, I believe.
Yes.
So that's just a situation where just a small town police department was just had the fascism turned full up, and we're not going to let they were not going to let that go, but they did, right?
Yeah, they picked a narrative, and there was video that showed that's not what happened. So I mean, that should have been the end of the story right there. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The DA got caught up in that too.
Yeah,
and that DA didn't run for re-election after that. So I'm wondering about this Morrissey guy, if he's going to run for re-election. It's going to be interesting. What do you think?
This is like that is. I talk about a bubble. I don't know who these people talk to, if they have any, and I understand they have to put up the public front, but it's mind numbing at this point. I can't even believe it. People ask me all the time, can you believe it? No, I can't. And I got to say, I asked a media attorney who has been around. I can't remember his name. He was at a conference in Boston. He's been around for years, though. I mean, this is a guy who's defended everyone from the Globe to the Herald to NBC. And it's like, have you ever seen anything like this in your 50 years? He goes, nothing even close. I mean, that includes Charles Stewart. Yeah. I mean, includes all of the craziest things. And I think part of that is, and I just want to say, since I got your audience here, man, this is, for me, the governor is one of the most embarrassing things, right?
Yeah,
I think, and I am a proud admitted progressive. I do not consider her one. She is a prosecutor. She's got some decent things that I'm sure some people disagree with, that I do agree with. But as for this is like a huge humiliation. I mean, can you imagine if this happened in my newsroom? I'd put it out of business. This is her newsroom, this is her thing. So I think, but the reason I bring it up is because this is like prosecutors, they don't admit they're wrong. I know some people don't like the Sean Ellis comparison. I do. I think the fact that there were 4 trials says so much, and the cases are unbelievably different. And these are extreme cases. As bad as Massachusetts is, usually it just happens. There's no fanfare. Somebody gets completely railroaded. We hear about it constantly. So yeah, as somebody said, the governor is useless on this issue. Apparently she is, because she'd rather be embarrassed I mean, to me, this is just an unbelievable embarrassment. So,
Yeah, she's been embarrassing. That's a good word for it.
and also, listen, the thing that I think a lot of people may not understand, or they understand but don't sense right away, is, when I covered Beacon Hill for so long, that I started to just realize, like, these cops and these state troopers, they drive these people around all day. They're like a member of the family. If you're like a millionaire and you have a butler, like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Jeffrey is a member of the family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what it is. And if they're not a member of the family, Mike, I wouldn't bullshit here. I have had several lawmakers, especially younger ones, newer ones, tell me they're terrified of the police.
Yeah, they are.
Terrified of them.
A
I mean,
lot of the
their details.
electeds,
Yeah. So
even like especially like the select board or the city councilor level, they are, some of them are literally frightened of their own police
yeah, I
force.
mean, and they should be. I mean, I don't know how actually dangerous a lot of it is, but certainly I've had, problems, and they'll, if they're driving past, when the police in your own town are drive past your house honking the horn, and you have a family, or well, even if you don't have a kids, your sense, even if you're not a big police fan, your sense of protection is through, shot. And then it's like, who else could I call? It's like, maybe the state police. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So,
And the
it's,
state
I get
police,
it.
like,
It's a
yeah,
huge frustration.
yeah. When you're the governor, because I used to drive by Charlie Baker's house as a regular commute, like twice a day. Let's just say twice a day, 5 days a week. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and they were there every single day, like every morning, every night coming home. They were never left. There's always a cruiser there. And that's what it is. It becomes part of your family. They're driving you to the next appointment. And sometimes the governor apparently has even been linked romantically to some of these state troopers. I've heard. Have you heard
Oh
anything
yeah.
like
I
that?
don't know. I don't know. Wait, the current governor?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not
I
right
don't know. I
now,
don't
but
deal with it.
apparently in the past, there was a story that came out that she might have
I
dated
mean,
a
that wouldn't be hard
support.
to, it's not hard to imagine. I mean, listen, the cops, I mean, one of the prosecutors and officers, the relationship between them is one of our major problems here, as we're seeing, right? And it's, of course, the unique nature of the way that Massachusetts investigates crimes and uses the state police all plays into this. It's, Massachusetts has a lot of unique things. One of them is, and for, one of the reasons being is that the Massachusetts State Police are the center of the prosecutorial universe, of the law enforcement universe here. They are so audacious that back in the day, when there used to be, anybody who's older and from Boston probably remembers the Mets, the Metropolitan Police, and they, when they were absorbed into the state police, along with some other very small policing units,
RMV, yeah, there was some. Yep,
those
go.
officers were the ones who came from, other agents, were never considered what's called an RT, real troopers. So they basically intentionally set up a caste system from day one, in their own classes. Which, by the way, we've done stories on this. We did a story on former trooper Antone Wilson. You can see that on the dig, about just the unbelievable treatment of some of those officers, him in particular, who railroaded, and so forget about it. I mean, they even among their own. So if anybody thinks they're getting anything from anybody at these departments, they eat their own. It's not. They definitely don't give a crap about anybody on the outside. And frankly, the Mass State Police really enjoy. I mean, I can't believe how tame the governor has been about what happened at the training facility. Are you kidding me? That they're still, that doesn't get shut down? Jesus, I think, I mean, back to
Shocking,
Nate. We
isn't
should
it?
we should get Nate to interview some boxers to see what would have to be done for that to happen.
That's good. Like you said, it's shocking they didn't at least just shut it down for like 30 days and say, like, until we know what's going on here,
Yeah.
just shut it down. You have some other stories. There's this other story that I wanted to look at, because I know there's a lot that's come up with this. You said, like, there's been so many scandals with the state police. It's hard to keep track of them, and with the Boston police too. But this one is about the recording. The state police got in some trouble too, using these non-authorized apps and for surveillance, and then there's the cell phone surveillance tech. Tell us
Yeah.
about this story. This feature follow-up, I can't even say it. Surreptitious
stimulation.
Dan Atkinson.
So basically, the background here is that there is no oversight for these major controversial purchases. First of all, at the municipal level, unless you have a very diligent city council or town meeting that is actually looking at some of these things, your local police, they're buying whatever the hell they want, right? Now, they only have so much money. And by the way, some things that your local cops get don't even ever show up on in budgets and stuff, because they're actually given, and these, there are various programs, and there are less of them now, but they're actually, they come from on up, state, feds. So it's really hard for watchdogs to even see them. Now, Dan Atkinson, we found this contract proposal for what's called a stingray, and I'll explain how this works in a minute. We found this proposal earlier this year. Basically, the state police just going out and saying, we want to buy this thing. It's called a cell site interceptor. Okay. Now, we couldn't believe it when we started reading this. That picture that you see at the top of the article, that's actually the install. So this thing comes in. They actually noted that they needed a Silverado to come with it. So imagine a Chevy Silverado with a full apparatus in the back, the whole back of it that's capped off so that you can't see it. Now imagine that Chevy Silverado going through, as we say, through the Gillette parking lot during a Patriots game. What this thing does is it pretends that it is a cell phone site. So the big towers that, anybody who's watching this Karen Reed case or any case knows, everything is being traced. But this is a fake tower. So now it can actually intercept every single call in range. So, and not just the calls, all the information going in and out of these phones,
all the data, all the text, everything, right?
All the text. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there, Fourth Amendment advocates among your viewers, who are saying, how in the hell is that legal? How is that not a legal search and seizure? Core constitutional principle. And the American Civil Liberties Union and others would argue it is such a violation. Absolutely is. Now, the problem, of course, is that this equipment, now, the one that you're looking at is the second article. The first article we did, and given we don't have the biggest platform, but guess what? Tens of thousands of people still read our stuff, including a lot of lawmakers. So it's not like nobody knew. But the first story we did on this months earlier was a warning. We said, this is going to happen. They are going to buy this. Okay. The article came out. We, obviously, they couldn't speed up the purchase because, there's the timeline. This wasn't like a backdoor deal. They had it on the state Combuys, by the way, if anybody out there feels like sleuthing, COMMBUYS. And by the way, we've done a lot of reporting on state police weapons purchasing. In fact, some of our reporting on tasers is part of the reason that the former head of the State Police Association of Massachusetts, Dana Pullman, is sitting in a jail right now. So if you're interested in absolute fuckery, the weapons purchasing of state police and other departments is completely out of control and unchecked. Now, when I say unchecked, that is not an exaggeration. There is, hear me loud and clear, there is literally no oversight of any purchases, of any munitions, of any ballistic blankets, fucking grenade launcher, whatever they want, they just buy it. And this is the latest. So this thing, this Fourth Amendment violation on wheels is, I can't stress to you. And if you go, Mike, there are graphics in there to show how it's used. This is an absolute nightmare for people who care about privacy and surveillance. This thing is, and we talked to a number of experts as to, and again, I'm going to bring this back to the pander. I'm going to pander a little. This is not good for even cops. This is like so many other surveillance tools. When you talk to the former police officers who are now criminal justice professors, stuff like that. That's the graphic about how it works. They'll tell you this is like this is making a giant haystack to find needles in. All right. Now, on the situations where it's not, yes, it could be a very effective tool for law enforcement, but it's also a tool that I am not such an idealist that I'm going to sit here and think that this stuff's not going to be used, etc. I am just saying that it needs to be kept in check. Now, right now, the state police will lend this. This thing is on loan if you want. If you're a police department and you want to lend this, borrow, the state police
sign it out like a library book.
Yeah, like a library book, you could use it. And I don't remember the exact specifics, but we did look. So some municipalities are supposed to report when they use it, but it's really just kind of murky. We also don't know whenever the state police are using it. And yes, it is scary stuff. And so, but they do have this. They are most likely using it. And so the article you're looking at now, that's the second article. Now, by that time, they'd bought it. There was some buzz. We actually got some lawmakers reach out to, do we have any more information? Like, it's our fucking job. I guess it is kind of, but nevertheless. So then, and of course, I don't want to diss those lawmakers because they're the responsible.
That's the best thing when they used to do that to me for cannabis issues.
Yeah.
Too. It's a good thing when they do that.
Yeah, it is. So, but this one though, so it was too late. It actually, we all know how, I don't know if everybody who follow the legislature, this was a abysmal year. They got very little done and then kind of looked and, told everyone like, go, that's what we do. That's how we do business, whatever. Right now, this is a good example of forget a priority. This is something nobody even knew about until we brought it to light. This could have been, not done away with. That's not what I'm not asking for anything. I'm a reporter, but advocates, are asking not to smash the thing up. That's not going to happen. Just for guardrails, guardrails. I always mess those two.
Rules of the road. I mean,
rules of the road, and that goes, for surveillance, everything. I'll talk about surveillance. Maybe we come back another time, but I gotta say, this is a huge thing with the state police. They just do whatever the hell they want. When it comes down to cities and towns, surveillance is something that you're wealthier and more educated, frankly, towns, better read towns. Brookline, Cambridge came down like hellfire for every time, a new camera goes up and stuff. And then you go to a place that a working class community where people maybe don't have time to, have a 300 person town meeting and be completely active all day. A place like Lawrence or even Boston. There's just, I think at one point we found out there were like 180 cameras on City Hall Plaza alone. That was like 10 years ago. Mike, as you probably remember, BINJ, early BINJ, we caught the Boston Police Department using facial recognition software and lying at the first Boston Calling concert.
Yeah, they were doing it
and lying about it. That article was called, oh my God, how am I? I'll think of it in a second. Oh, Boston Trolling. How could I forget?
Yes, that was great. Boston Trolling.
Yeah, so a lot of it is, and you've figured it a million times. Your viewers have seen it. They just lie, man. They just lie. So I think one of the big differences in our reporting is that I know people want to paint us with the progressive brush or whatever. We play it straight, man. There's nothing makes a story stronger than like a solid point on the other side. And for this one, I tell you, the cops don't even try to make a point. They don't even, it's not like they say to us, we don't want to have oversight. They just don't respond, but they don't want it. So back to what people can do, shit, in your city, in your town, when you see a thing that looks a little sketchy, sometimes it won't say surveillance. It won't say the bad words, right? Look these things up. Cameras, a lot of the cameras that are coming out now, by the way, we just saw Dan Atkinson props also caught the I forget what they're called, the Massachusetts. It's not the state police. It's like there's a small group of police that watch the state house. They're I don't know if they actually ended up getting them. They're attempting to purchase cameras that are capable of facial recognition. So you see a lot of this crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that the brick, maybe? The brick?
No, it wasn't brick. This is actually, I forget. They're like this. Yeah. Brick, of course, a brick was involved, by the way, in the other story I was talking about.
The facial recognition.
Yeah. But so like you'll see these little things like, oh, we're going to get the cameras that are capable of doing it, but we're not
But
going
we
to
won't
turn it
turn it on
on.
yet. We won't
I
turn
mean,
it on
literally,
yet.
can like
Yeah.
what? And you know, and it's kind of it's kind of like I tell my child, uh, I you know, there's really no accountability around here, so I don't want you to do it in the first place because if you do it and bad things happen, what are we going to do here? It's like the same with the. So it's always better to find out about things beforehand. But at the least, it's nice to have said something. So then when something bad happens, say, you know, it's not just about told you so. It's about maybe an adult will show up in the legislature. Maybe the governor will decide to gain a conscience and say, all right, this was all preventable. But nothing, I got to say, in all my years of reporting, nothing has been more predicted, more forewarned, more preventable than Massachusetts State Police corruption. We have had entire uh, our story, Real Troopers and Beeper days from it's a while ago now. I just saw it from a couple of, from years ago, from before the pandemic, was about a actual study that they did that got buried. I mean, we're talking like in a drawer. I think there was only one small short article about it. And when I tell you, when we read this report years later, it laid out. I mean, it was like I said, I'm not a soothsayer. Whoever wrote this was like basically this is what everything's going to happen if you don't fix the racial animosity between these state troopers. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, and lo and behold, here we are. It is scandal after scandal. Anytime any journalist, myself included, whenever we write about the state police, it's like, you know, you want to kind of, you know, if you're given like a little laundry list of the things that happen, you can update that every month. And there's been 3 mini scandals. It's just crazy.
It goes on and on and on. I mean, even the OUI testing, we haven't even talked about that. They were.
I mean, I hate to say this, like a lot of my sources on the state police stuff are obviously old state troopers who hate the younger state troopers for myriad reasons. They're the most guilty of. I mean, these guys have been drunk driving. I'm just gonna say, I mean, drunk driving with these guys is culture, baby. Like, and I'm not just talking in cars. I mean, on motorcycle. I mean, it is absolute inebriation. I used to live in that, you know, that Hyde Park, Roslindale area, West Roxbury, where the cops live. I drank with them. I interviewed them at their bars, and I gotta say, man, it was never my position. Really, I mean, maybe some of y'all out there are much more heroic than I. Martyrs, I can't even tell you how. I mean, guys who couldn't even open the door of their fucking car, leaving the car at pub and then driving back to whatever, Norwood, Westwood, Foxborough, absolute part of the culture. And I really hope that they, you know, we see now a couple of them with dash cams, stuff like that, especially the younger guys. They will arrest a cop every now and then. It's harder for them to get away with that one. I'm sure some of it still happens, but yeah, it's a bad thing. It's dangerous as hell. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of stories out there of people who have had injuries, but also even just their cars destroyed by. Oh wait, it didn't one of the Alberts? Oh, not the cop one. What was that? He like drunk drove the car through Canton, hit all these other cars.
Yeah,
That was the pizza shop guy. I forget who that. Anyway,
that was one of the other brothers.
it's one of the other
four
brothers.
other
But I mean,
brothers.
this is the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. And then like, you know, then yeah, have fun getting a police report for your insurer when it was a cop or a cop's brother who sideswiped your car on a bender. Good luck.
Good luck on that. And the cops, you know, are all covering for each other, of course. There's a comment says last year over 400 arrests were made from warrantless wiretaps in Massachusetts. Then they're asking, was that truck that was parked at the Stoughton courthouse? Who knows, right? I mean, they could
I don't
probably
know.
be having them anywhere people
Show
gather,
me
right?
if you send me pictures, Mike. And of course, we have some people in our network who really know this stuff. I know that's a good thing. Now that there's so many people functioning as reporters, by the way, I'm one of those guys, as you know, and can attest. I don't have this line. This one's a reporter. This one's not. No, if you're out there sleuthing. So as far as this, share those pics. So they have this Silverado now. You see that thing? They are definitely intercepting calls. And as I think we're so far through the looking glass here that I wouldn't put anything past. As for the arrests on warrantless wiretaps, I wasn't aware of that number. It's not mind blowing though. And I'm sure you talk to any public defender, CPCS is so that's the public defender counsel services and others who, just defense attorneys. This is a continuous nightmare for them. And by the way, I'll go full circle with this. This is the same as them not knowing a cop's history because it's not there. It's all clandestine. It's all cloak and dagger. It's all secretive. And attorneys already work hard, but it's this added dimension.
I put Chris's Twitter at Farah1 in the chat. It's pinned right now. Please follow him. If you have any good tips, if you want to send him some questions, like you said, if you want to send him a picture of a van that you want him to take a look at, send it over there to his Twitter, Farah1. Please follow Chris. And follow all his stories. Yeah.
Yeah. And for BINJ, if you go to BINJ.news or horizonmass.news or horizon.mass, you can sign up for our newsletter. We don't spam. It's like one email every other week, just on the big stuff we're doing. We're a small shop. We don't do really like, spot coverage. Actually, one thing that your readers will definitely, I guess I'd be an idiot if I didn't plug this. We are sooner than later, toward the end of the year, beginning of next year, also depending on when the trial starts back up. We're working with a number of writers. Mike, we'd love to get you in there. And the idea is this, we're fully recognize the work that everybody's doing here. You, Aiden, there's a lot of people. There's nothing I can lend to this. Except for this, right? All of this other background. I mean, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. So what we are doing, it's called Read Between the Lines. There'll be simple columns, 600 to 800 words that we run on our wire. And they'll basically be saying things like this, or all these questions I keep saying. I see them come up on your show, on social media. For example, what the hell does it take to get a cop fired in Massachusetts? What are the treatment of drunk driving with cops in the past? Who's been in trouble? Who hasn't? I could go on and on, but these things we had a laundry list. I'm working with other reporters as this trial has gone on, and we feel that we can, maybe not always answer, but entertain these. And we're definitely looking. So, I think that there's a lot of jump off points here. I'm not trying to steal any attention, but we definitely want to fill that in. And I think that the idea of the potential law enforcement surveillance outside of the courthouse would be a perfect kind of thing for us to look at. I respect and understand all the attention on the trial. It's got to be there, but there's all this other stuff going on, and certainly other cases also that deserve attention. But just even the background of these institutions, I think when you hear some people, and listen, I got to say, some of the stuff I saw on that stand.
Oh, did you freeze, or is it me? I think Chris might have freeze. Let me know in the chat. Did Chris freeze? That was so good. He's been killing it tonight. I love this. I gotta say, Chris, we all, like everyone watching, the audience has been growing as you've been going. There you are. You're back.
Hey, Jamal wants to know if he could call in.
It's up to you. You're the main guest.
Yeah, of course.
So, could you send him the link right now, or do you want me to send him the link?
Do you have his info?
I might have his number.
I could do it. I could do it. Just give me a second.
Yeah. Okay. So
and I'll say, so as an intro to Jamal, Jamal Crawford is one of the reasons that we have police certification in Massachusetts.
That's right. Jamal's a great guy too. It looks like Chris is freezing up for some reason, unless it's my internet. That's why I asked the audience. They'll tell me. Is it me or is it Chris? Who's got the bad internet right now? But I got to say, like, I'm excited when you say that the research that you could provide and the information, there's a lot more that could, this is going to be great. I'm glad that you're going to be
Cool.
doing this. And
Yeah,
you're back.
I just sent it to him. If he's still on there, I don't know when he sent that to me. I haven't been paying attention to my text, but and that was probably I think I should be better now.
You are better. You're back.
Cool.
Good.
But yeah, I think that this is this stuff is not in a vacuum, and I do understand the desperation, frankly, of a lot of people who are now seeing, look, this is the same district attorney's office that nailed me to the wall, nailed my cousin to the wall. And man, and I can't also stress enough that this is happening like at a legendary courthouse in this is right outside of Boston. If this was, this is where there is attention, and they don't care. I gotta say, the news about the new attorney on the prosecution
Hank
side,
Brennan, what do you think?
It blew my mind, and I don't want to pretend to know his background personally, but I think when we're talking about perception, it turns out the public is not the audience after all. When you think of all the nonsense PR and all the cops petting dogs crap that we have to deal with on television every day, and the nonstop police propaganda that we get, it's actually hilarious to watch them flush it all down the toilet like this. I mean, it's like, but there's still a lot of people that fall for it and love it. And like I said, certainly I get particularly aggravated at certain times. I have in the past, but I get it. I understand people are looking out for their best interest. The problem is I'm not concerned about the individual's best interest. I'm concerned about institutions. I'm concerned about the people they're supposed to, purportedly protecting.
Now, I got to ask you, should we bring up I want to say former Black Panther? You probably correct me, but brother from another mother, because I never had two Crawfords on the show before. I don't think he's called in before, actually, but I don't think I've ever done video with him. What do you think? Should I bring him up now? Are we ready?
Yeah, bring him in. Bring him in.
He's always a spark. He's always a live fire. We got Jamal Crawford. What's up, Jamal?
Peace. It's good to see both of you together. I've been listening to the show, and just got a couple things. Yeah, former New Black Panther Party for sure. But that was such a long time ago. I resigned in 2010, so quite a while ago now. But yeah, I wanted to just say about the police decertification. It's very interesting because, as Chris was saying, this thing, it's good for cops too. And some of the cops that I spoke to originally, because, fun fact, nobody was really for this in the beginning. The usual suspects that I thought would have just been like, oh, this is a great idea. No one was for it. Black elected officials and all this. Shout out to Senator Jamie Eldred, now senator. He was then a rep. Mm-hmm. As well as Senator Brownsberger, who I believe he was also a rep back then as well.
He used to be a prosecutor too. He used to put people in jail, Brownsberger too. So.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah. So they're the ones that really helped me do the legislative session that began to inform when everybody was really scared of it, and it was called police decertification. So post is kind of even the softening of the name, because they felt like police decertification was too harsh of a term, even though that's exactly what it does. I'd also like to shout out Professor Roger Goldman.
Rest in peace, right?
Who was the guy who, he was the architect of it. He died now, I want to say a year ago, July. So rest in peace to Professor Roger Goldman and his family. He was, as they say in the Jewish culture, he was a mensch. Okay. This guy, at that time, I had been bringing scholars to Boston to do various things. So I was like, hey, I'd like to bring you here on this police decertification thing. We'll get you a hotel and we'll take care of your airfare and all that. And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, I thought he was telling me no. He was like, no, I'm just going to come. and he came on his own dime, footed the bill himself because he was a true believer in that thing. The last thing I'll say on it is when we finally got the ball rolling on it, and this goes back to the cop thing, one of the first groups, actually the first group that we got to sign on to it was, I'm going to mess up their acronym, but it's like the International Association of Police Chiefs. Okay? The International Association. Okay? Because what good people understand, all right, let's go to lawyers. Why are there lawyer jokes? Because of bad lawyers, right? And a good lawyer doesn't want to be associated with a bad lawyer.
Exactly.
A good teacher doesn't want to be associated with a bad teacher. A good doctor doesn't want to be associated with a bad doctor. You get the point. So officers who really take their job and their oath seriously and really believe in enforcing and upholding the law, right? They don't want bad apples in their midst either. It makes their job more difficult. It gives a black eye on the profession as a whole, and it's why there is so much mistrust right now. And so I've always encouraged that those good officers out there need to do more aggressively to turn over and help expose the bad officers among them. Just like they say for us, they have anonymous lines for you to snitch, right? See something, say something. Well, I want them to snitch first. Because you know the officer that's beating his wife. You know the officer that's sniffing cocaine. You know the officer that's drunk driving. You know the officer that's beating kids up or stealing money or anything else. So I think that there needs to be kind of like a revival amongst law enforcement to really oust and expose those amongst them who are really giving the entire profession a bad name.
Yeah, and the fact that they are just still so many around. Like when I tell you that we went into the civil service, you see things like the Quincy police. They let in. There's a guy who's suing them because he scored a certain thing on the test, and they let in all these other guys, right? Well, I mean, forget it. Drunk driving, assault, like the guys who they let in. They recently let these people on the force, and we only know about that because this other guy who looks like he's a real asshole. Don't get me wrong. He's not. He's the one they wanted, but he's the asshole they don't like. Okay. These other and this is Quincy, big money, good job. And that's the joke. Jamal said, like, listen, these good cops, they do not last long. They get bullied. And forget, even cops who play along, if their wife doesn't hang out with the other wives, the stories I hear are absolutely insane. We are at the point now where these so-called good cops they're not even showing up. They're not who the hell? People say who would run for office? Who the hell would be a cop? Right. And in this, so this huge culture shift, hopefully this is all part of it, but man, it is so ugly. And when, the Canton stuff, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say every department is as bad as Canton and Stoughton. God help us. Right. But man, this is the kind of crap that has gone on forever. And I'm so sick of hearing people say that Canton is now divided. Bullshit. It's always been divided, just like every other municipality where half the people are fucking terrified of the cops and the other half, their kids play, fucking baseball with them and they go to dinner together. It's not a new thing. It's just that people are emboldened. So I think that's we're moving in a positive direction there.
Hey, look, I'm going to let y'all go back at it. I'm just going to say this too. With the state police mess that it is, I had very big concerns when I saw that the new guy, came from New Jersey police because, of course, they have such a stellar track record.
Right?
Anybody who's driven through New Jersey on the turnpike, that might be one of the scariest state troopers to deal with, you know? So New Jersey Turnpike, this guy from the New Jersey, I'm very worried about that. And then the other thing too is, Chris, to your earlier point, the very point of decertification and this whole national database is, if you are a bad actor here in Boston, you're not supposed to be able to get decertified up here and then show up in Florida and become a cop. Be a cop down there. Because much like, a lawyer, if you scam an old lady out of her will up here and you get disbarred, you can't just go practice in California. And the same thing with the doctor. You do a bad, butt job, in a basement up here, and they take your medical license, you can't just go, to Florida and start over again. So that's traditionally, that's the spirit of decertification. But if it's not working, and particularly in the absence of people like Professor Goldman, who was really on it, then journalists such as yourself, activists such as myself, and others, we need to really tighten down the database and find out where it's working well, where it's not working so well, what are the little loopholes, and and cinch it up. Because if we can find multiple cases of officers, particularly from our area, going to get employed elsewhere, that's a major problem.
That's great. Jamal, I was just going to ask you that too. Like even a follow up on that. There's a lot of new people who are kind of new to this, all of this. What would your advice to that, like to people who want to help on this issue, maybe watching at home, that weren't aware of all the stuff that Chris has been spilling, all the stuff you're spilling? How can they get involved and help out?
So the first thing is, we need to take the same type of care and concern that we do sometimes with, let's say, YouTube videos. People who weren't even aware of, let's say, the Diddy case, in the past 2 weeks, they took themselves from kindergarten to college. They know all things Diddy now, right? So if you were truly interested in police reform, it's going to take you some hours. YouTube, go look at some of the videos. Go look at the videos of when we brought police decertification to Boston. Go spend some time on the dig. Go look at Chris Ferrone's old articles, right? Go into the archives of even Woke Windows, even though it's not being updated anymore. And I can't remember that guy's name, but super salute to him, because wow, that was just a great work right there. But folks should familiarize themselves with that, because even though it's not updated now, it's still good up to the year that he stopped publishing it. And that's very telling. And just, look, if you really are concerned about the issue, just study, research, educate yourself. Don't be one of these, Monday morning quarterback things, think you just saw a little bite on the news and now you're an expert too. It takes a little bit of digging in to find a level of expertise. And also too, the only other thing I'll say is join a movement that fits you. If you want to donate to BINJ, do that. Donate to Mike Crawford, do that. But if you can contribute, if you're a writer or you want to do some research, then get involved. Volunteer for your local, I don't know, NAACP or whatever. But get involved. Get in where you fit in. Find, something that motivates you and where you can find like-minded spirits. And that's where you should find yourself.
Thank you for doing that, Jamal. You've been doing it for years.
All right.
I really love you. Jamal Crawford, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Peace, Chris. Peace, Cousin Crawford. I'll see you at the family reunion.
I'll see you at
I'll
the
talk to you later, man.
Later.
Love him. He's great.
Yeah.
So we covered a lot. Are there other stories that you might want to bring up?
I mean, I think, listen, I think the point's there. I mean, we cover, you have a statewide audience or even bigger than that. We cover a lot of MBTA. And the only reason I would mention that is because on top of what Jamal said, I think you really got to, just because something's not the biggest headline doesn't mean it's not the biggest headline. You know, with the MBTA, my team has exposed literally tens of millions, actually way past 100 million point in waste and fraud and bullshit and abuse. Well, not technically fraud because it has not been prosecuted as such, but absolute money down the tubes, stuff like that, and it's really in broad daylight. A lot of it, sure, it takes the work, it takes the investigation, but the state wastes money. There's just a lot happening, and so like I said, I'm the anti-conspiracy conspiracy theorist. It's not always as sexy, it's not always as hot. When we busted Dana Pullman, the former head of the state police, on the taser thing, what mostly made the news was not the tasers. It was that he had a girlfriend and there was a trip to Miami and this and that. And, frankly, that wasn't what I was concerned about. There were, and also, of course, police, everyone cares about details in Massachusetts, and he was the king of details. I always love police details, by the way, because that shows how ridiculous Massachusetts is. We're the only state without civilian flaggers. So if you want to know how much, how powerful the cops are in this state, and how the hurdles that you're up against, the mountain that you have to move in order to get anything done when it comes to police reform in this state, look no farther than the 4 idiots on their cell phones who are supposed to be protecting your family at a stop sign. Look no farther than that. I mean, if we can't even get cops off their goddamn cell phones when they're doing a detail that they're making $280 an hour for, then we're fucked. And I can't say that enough. That is, to me, every time I see that, I don't care. Let them look at their fucking porn sites and text each other about the underage women they're passing around. Hopefully they'll be busted on that eventually. But honestly, it is more, to me, that is more symbolic than anything. It says that, and you bet your ass that I yell out my window at them and tell them to get the fuck off their phone, because I am so tired of it. It is such a symbol of everything that goes on with them.
Back in the day, you'd see police officers smoking butts, but like every police, but over you notice, over the last 20, 30 years, that doesn't happen. Every police force is ban that. If you have a cigarette in uniform, you're getting fired.
I didn't realize. Yeah, I guess that would make sense.
So why don't they do the same thing on the cell phone? Because it's so true. When they're on that detail, 9 times out of 10, they're looking at their goddamn phone. They're not even looking at traffic. It's just, it's
money.
Why don't they do something about that? You'd think that they would enforce that like they did for the cigarettes. You don't see them smoking a cigarette. Doing the detail.
That's something they'll go to war for. They'll go to war for that even more than they defend those details even more than their right to beat the shit out of people with impunity.
So again, where can people find out all your work?
Really, BINJ.news. We actually just built a new site, and that's a site, since the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism is like an incubator. Yeah, we do the reporting, but we distribute it through different places and and we have Horizon Mass, which is a site we could read the full articles. BINJ.news, brand new site. It's really meant as all the stuff we're doing, it points out to all of it. So we're going to be doing events. We have these new, we have something called Garbage Rail Kids, which are garbage pail kids making fun of the T. Because, we always looking for interesting and creative ways to get this long form journalism out there. It's not all easy to digest. Sometimes we do it in bite-sized pieces. But yeah, so BINJ.news, but yeah, follow me. But yeah, just basically, keep it out. Like Jamal said, there are a lot of people doing a lot of this work, and it's not like we're pining for credit. It's just that we don't want to see you do the same thing that we already spent all this time on. I'd hate to see someone go dig up every vote that under Charlie Baker for judges when we already spent months doing that work. So yeah, I mean, just keep an eye out, and Roger Goldman. I gotta say, for those who are out there looking to look up the story of Roger Goldman. This is one guy who is basically responsible for us having police certification and decertification in multiple states across the country. So not to give you the corniest line of all time, but it is unbelievable what small forces can accomplish. And a lot of the work we do, a lot of the work that's being uncovered in the Karen Reed case may not be the biggest, sexiest, hottest news today. but hopefully down the line, somebody will need that. And it happens all the time. So I appreciate, Mike, you got a great audience, really engaged viewership. I'm among them. You're always there when I'm making dinner, when nobody else is giving a shit. You managed to be. So I appreciate getting the word out. And yeah, we're going to be doing that read between the lines column. I don't want to drop any names, but I got some great reporters. But and I want to get you involved. But yeah, definitely ideas for that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, this has been an unbelievable energy that's been created.
Let's plan to have you on too. Back like when that stuff's coming out, let's do this again, and especially if the
Cool, man. I ain't going near that courtroom though, dude.
I don't blame you. I'm not either. I cover it from afar, basically.
Sometimes it's just so much easier to look at the ceiling fan.
Yeah, the ceiling fan. You like
that? Dude, that ceiling fan, man. I'm telling you,
famous,
very famous ceiling fan.
No, I just I put BINJ website in the chat. Make sure people check that out and subscribe. See, I got it right on the screen right there.
Yeah, it's free. Sign up right there. Sign up right there. And honestly, I hate asking for money anyway, but we haven't earned your viewers' money. Just follow us. Get the newsletter. The money comes. We're doing okay right now. It'll come in. Support us if you like what we're doing. Really, we're about getting that out there. The donations come just like they do with the podcast when people appreciate. Right now, especially if for your engaged audience, people who are actually sharing and not just being upset, they're actually doing something about it. Those are the kind of people we want to engage with. So please, sign up for the newsletter. And like I said, we don't spam you. It's like every other week you'll see the stories we're doing, and a lot of them are related to this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I hope people subscribe. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Chris Ferrone.
Thanks for having me, man.
Everything you've done for me as well over the years.
No doubt, dude.
If people like my show, you have to realize, there's like 3 people I give credit to, like for me even being here right now. It's KOP, my boy KOP, who passed away. It's my girlfriend, and it's Chris Ferrone. Like, that's it.
Thanks, dude.
You guys are like so instrumental in my journey. So thank you so much, Chris.
Well, dude, thanks for
and
all
I know
the
a lot of other people you supported like this too. So I really appreciate you.
Keep it rolling, man.
Thank you. Chris Ferrone. Check him out. Follow him. He's on social media, Pharaoh1 on Twitter. Check out his website, and please subscribe. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Chris Ferrone.
Thanks, man. I'll see you later.
And longtime friend, big time mentor. I can't tell you enough about him. You saw tonight how great he was. He's really a good speaker, very passionate about this work. He puts a lot into it. He's covered a lot of stories over the years, and definitely check it out. BINJ, go up there and sign up, subscribe, please. Please subscribe to what he's doing over there. I want to thank everyone who's been watching tonight. It started off a little slow. There weren't a lot of people watching in the very beginning. I know there were some other good shows, but it rose throughout the night, and I want to thank people for sticking with us and new people jumping on. If you're just watching the end of it, come back and watch the beginning, because Chris dropped a lot of good info tonight, and definitely going to have him back. I want to thank Romy, who just dropped $99 in our super chat. Thank you so much, Romy. Romy says a detail worker. Actually, there we go. I gotta increase the size. A detail worker, retired officer, pulled me over in his personal vehicle for beeping at him because he cut me off hard. He threatened to bring me in. Then he tried to deny doing it, but my daughter was with me. He gave me a half-assed apology. Sorry, rant over. Thank you so much, Romy, for the donation tonight. And I think all of us have somewhere experienced something like that. And I think that's what Chris was referencing tonight. You're either friends with the police, where that doesn't happen to you, or you're afraid that something like that might happen. And that's got to stop. And I think another thing that was mentioned tonight, I think was very illuminating. We talk about, does anyone want to, why would anyone want to go into law enforcement right now? And the law enforcement always talks about the public doesn't respect us. I think they're losing a lot of candidates because of the people who are in law enforcement. Look what they did to Enrique. People don't want to be hazed. People don't want to be harassed. People don't want the clicks. So Good officers are leaving. Good officers don't get promoted. Good officers don't go into the law enforcement. That needs to change. And Post needs to do better. We need to start asking the governor and the state electeds, what are you doing about Post Commission? We need more information. The journalists are asking for it. I want to see Andrew Quimera get all that information that he was requesting from the Post Commission. You know what they could do with that? I want to thank Chris Ferrone again so much for being here tonight. If you haven't, please follow him, subscribe to him, sign up for it. If you can, donate to him. He's been doing great work for a long time, especially if you know him, especially if you're like me who's been following him for a while. I saw someone mention court tomorrow. Aiden's going to be in court tomorrow, 2 p.m. I will be streaming it if I can. What I mean by if I can find the Zoom link. Everyone's been looking for the Zoom link. So if we get that Zoom info, I'll be streaming that at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And then I don't know. I'm definitely taking off tomorrow night. There's a big dinner plan. I'm going to be, Bettero's going to be in town tomorrow. Bettero's going to be in court. I'm going to be hanging out with Bettero tomorrow night. Maybe some other people. So maybe the Glera. I might even, we'll see. Hopefully I see the Glera tomorrow night too. I know I'm going to see some people tomorrow night. So I'm definitely taking off a show, not doing a show tomorrow night. Probably even going to take off like Friday and Saturday. I might take off like 3 nights. I've been going like every night. Think I need a break. And then next week is going to be a lot of shows. I got a lot planned. I got a lot of guests hitting me up. I'm going to have some surprises for you. I'm excited by what's going on here in Massachusetts with the show too. But with all the other shows and all the other journalists in the community and the Twitter accounts, it's really something to feel a part of something happening here. And it really does feel like that. And that's why I'm looking forward to Thursday night, because I get to I'm going to meet Bettero in person. I'm looking forward to that Thursday night. There's so much good going on because of this. I want to say God bless Karen Reed. Thank God Karen Reed stood up and didn't take this shit. She's created a movement. So I'll see you guys when I see you. I'm not sure when. Hopefully I'll see some of you maybe tomorrow night even. We'll see. But thank you so much. And again, please support Chris Ferrone. Please subscribe and follow him. If you like me and support me, you're going to like Chris. Chris is where I come from. Chris got me started at all of this stuff. He kept me going for a long time. I got to tell you. Just had a Venmo come in. I'm going to read the Venmo tonight. Denise just sent $19.41. It said, thank you for all you do. Thank you so much, Denise. Very generous of you. All right. I want to thank everyone who's been watching and supporting and sharing. Yeah, this is the comment right now. Because of Karen, there is a justice in so many cases, people's lives. You too, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, MJ, who's our moderator tonight. She's been in the chat. I want to thank our moderators, Jen, Stephanie, MJ, Scott. Thank you so much for moderating our chat. Thank you, MJ, for posting the links tonight. And yeah, I heard that Galera is going to be in Boston. I think he might be in Boston now, or he's headed here now. The Galera is going to be in Boston tomorrow at court. Yes, please smash that like button. And thank the mods and Chris Ferrone on the way out. And thank Jamal Crawford, too, for calling in. That was fun. I love Jamal. Both those guys, like Chris Ferrone and Jamal Crawford, guys been doing it a long time. And some of you may have seen Jamal on Turtle Boy's show in the past. I've seen him there. Jamal and Turtle Boy are definitely friendly. We'll put it that way. even though their politics don't. All right, I'm out of here. I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much for supporting. Thank you, Chris Ferrone, again, for being a guest tonight. Thank you, Jamal Crawford, for calling in. Thank you, MJ, for being in the chat tonight, moderating. Have a great night, everyone. And thank you all for listening and supporting and sending donations as well. And thank you subscribing to BINJ. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next time.